All right, guys, what's up? Ryan Lucas, your host of Powerline Podcast. Welcome to Powerline Podcast. Glad to have you here again. For those longtime listeners, welcome back. For the new listeners out there, I hope you get some value and enjoyment out of these episodes. This week's guests are two guys I've had on the show in the past. They're both from Milwaukee Tool, Steve Sarnocinski and Mike Dumoit. Awesome guys. Love talking to these guys. If we get into like topics on military leadership, Milwaukee Tool, what's in the future, building culture, all kinds of great stuff. Can't wait to get into this one, so let's jump right in. All right, guys. Steve, Mike, thanks for making the trip out. Round two, let's go. Ding. This is awesome. Thanks for coming, by the way. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Incredible studio.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. You came to our home, now we're at your...
Yeah.
I know. We should do the thing out at Milwaukee again. That was pretty cool. It was a good setup.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been talking about getting Quanta, like more folks from Quanta out there, because I think it gives a glimpse behind the scenes of who we are, right, and what the culture is, and it's not just a tool company, right?
It's also to enhance our partnership with you guys, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about what we're a Milwaukee brand. We want to sell you something. It's like we want to support and provide other resources and to show you like what we can do and how your company and our company can work together.
Well, the beautiful thing about it is, like, when Mike and I started, we had one building in Brookfield and a couple hundred people in that building, and now we have West Bend, where we're doing the Made in USA hand tools, which you came out to. We have McGuanago, which now we're doing all the Made in USA PPE out of that facility. We have Brookfield. We have a downtown office now as well. So when you drive down that thoroughfare, the main thoroughfare in Milwaukee, it's big Milwaukee brand out front. So it's kind of cool for us to get back and just see the growth back there. We feel it in the field, but
What does the community feel like with you guys around? Are they like...
They embrace it.
Yeah.
They do.
They're stoked, proud of like Milwaukee Tool as part of their community.
Absolutely. A national brand, and that's a lot of pride in the town of Milwaukee. It's named after the town, right? And the community's gathered support, and we do a lot with the community. Sarno's on the community impact team. There's a lot of stuff we do there and support and provide resourcing there as well.
Yeah, that was what's been cool is as we've gotten bigger, we have gotten way more invested in the community, if that makes sense. I think we were just we were scratching and clawing at the beginning just to make this thing a success. Not the beginning, but in 2008, 2009, and
The real beginning.
Exactly. Next year's 100 years, by the way.
I know.
Which is
I just wikied it, like studying for this episode or whatever, and I realized that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Big party planned or what?
We're working through that right now. Yeah, it's going to be dynamic. I think what we do for the employees, what we do for our customers, what we do for distribution, end users, et cetera. So it's a big deal. I mean,
it is a big deal.
I think a lot of the people know Milwaukee of today, not necessarily the journey, which is, cool. But to get back to the community piece, Mike said I'm on the community impact team. It's something we started pretty much mid-COVID to decide where we want to partner in the community. True. A big one that I'm involved with through some counterparts back at corporate is Center for Veterans Issues. So we've gotten really involved. I mean, that just a kind of blanket statement in places we want to be involved, organizations that are doing good for the community and making sure we're a part of it.
And
so,
yeah, I still show everybody the white psych wall at Milwaukee. Photos of it. I'm like, even last night we were at the Lazy Q and we're taking headshots of the guys, and they got this piece of paper they pull down and it's a backdrop, and I'm like, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
Giant room psych wall.
It's the largest psych wall in North America or something. There's some claim to fame that
crazy.
Tim Brasher, his creative genius, he built, and so still talk about it.
I get busted on every time I go back there. We bring a customer through there. Well, we have some really cool things in that facility. That's where we're doing some AI stuff. That's where we're doing high voltage testing. That's where we do ergo testing. And I'm like the guy that's always like, can we go to the white room? Just because it's so, like, I think it's cool for a customer to see. It's not just about everything we're doing behind the scenes. It's like all the production side of how we launch a tool into the market, the video, the pictures, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's awesome.
You get it.
Yeah.
I get it when I walk in there and like all of your photographers and videographers are out using all of your camera gear, but you walk in there and there's still just like $60,000 red camera just sitting out. Like, do you know what this is?
No idea.
Just chill it here on this table.
Yeah.
Protect it.
It didn't go missing after you left, did it?
Negative. It is cool too. Like, when you look at a lot of companies, not many of them last past the person, like their founder, right? It's like you look at companies like Apple, they've managed to like pass on after Steve Jobs and become even more successful and carry on and grow. And you look at companies that have like kind of dwindled, and if they haven't like completely disappeared, they've gone like Kodak or something. You know what I mean? Like they just didn't get past the first initiative, their first push, the first generation. And you guys like 100 years. So there's not a lot of companies that have done that successfully.
Yeah. And I think it's crazy too for us. Like when we hear Steve and Shane and some of our leadership talk about when they came over to Milwaukee, like there were times that we thought maybe we would have to turn the lights out.
Sure.
Like that's where we were, because we've been owned by a lot of different people over the generations. Before us, it was Atlas Copco. Before that, it was some private equity. And I think at some point a church
owned
us,
yeah.
which is just crazy to think about. And we had this kind of like best in class mindset where it was, we never really launched innovative products in the 80s, let's say. It was all about incremental improvements. Hey, this is going to go X times faster, all that kind of stuff. So when Steve and Shane and those guys came in, it just blew everything up. And Shane always tells the story about when we launched our M12 line, Steve came in and said, hey, I want to do something like this. And Shane's like, okay, I think we can do that. And Steve's like, I want it in 6 months. And Shane's like, that completely turned, I think, everyone's mindset upside down, because new product development for that at that point was like a 2-3 year process. And we knew in order for us to take share at that time, it needed to be speed to market, needed to be agility, and it needed to create the sense of urgency throughout the company that we're going to win in times now. So I think that's, we talk about we're still around 100 years. I think some of those decisions that were made in that 7-8 time frame impacted our careers, our lives, really, and the explosive growth of the company, because it created a culture that wasn't necessarily there before. So
yeah,
I want to unpack so much there, but let's go back to like introducing yourselves.
Sure.
No,
sure.
It's all
yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, let's go Mike first.
Mike Dumoit, the director of our utility business, kind of managing the vertical, working side by side with Sarno as we kind of grow this and build it out and look for the future.
And I'm Steve Sarnocinski. I'm our senior VP for utility. And since the last time we talked, took on a little bit more responsibility. So taking on our renewable energy business, clean energy space. Jeff Lohman is coming over to my team. Started a small team here recently. We're going to really focus there. Obviously, that's where a lot of this industry is going. We want to make sure we're plugged in. So everything power utility, so investor-owned utilities, public power, utility contractors, and then everything in the renewable space. So
Where do you come from?
I come outside of Philadelphia. People from Philly say I'm from Philly, but when they're necessarily like 30 or 45 minutes outside. But yeah, I'm from outside of Philly.
That's not that far.
Yeah, but the city of Philly, as Mike will tell you, he was just there. City of Philadelphia versus the suburbs of Philadelphia are like two different things. Obviously, it's the same culture. Like we all love our sports teams and whatnot, and we all kind of have the same mentality. We talked about it last time. I want to talk about that a little bit more this time, but yeah, I'm from outside Philly.
What is the Philly culture? Explain to me what, like somebody that's never been to Philly, what is Philly culture?
Yeah, I was thinking about it last night coming here because I was watching the George Foreman movie. And in a lot of ways, that was an underdog story. And I talk to this about our team all the time, because I think that's a lot about what our culture is too. We don't use that word,
sure, but
when we were scratching and clawing to make this thing work, it was an underdog culture. And I think that's a big piece about Philadelphia. Is you look at some of the movies that are synonymous with Philly. You got Rocky, right, which is an underdog story. You got Invincible, which is an underdog story. I think a lot of the sports teams that have actually won the championship, which hasn't been that often, they were underdogs. And I think that's why it's a sports town. It's an underdog culture. It's blue collar. but it's also really, really small. I'm sure Houston's the same way. I mean, it's the 5th or 6th largest city, but it's incredible, the network, because I always say people don't necessarily move to Philly, right? Like people move to Texas, people move to Florida, people are moving to Philly as a destination to live. So that culture and community there is pretty significant. So,
I got you. It's like established.
Yeah, it's one of those oldest cities here, right? But it's generational. Yeah, I mean, you talk about most of my family that came here came off the boat, right, 4 generations ago, and they stayed there.
What's Philly like? What's Philly recognized for, noted for, like other than being like the underdog story of the world? Like, you know, you got your New York City is like your Wall Street and your finance, and like, is there something that Philly's like specifically known?
Cheesesteaks.
Damn. Really good shit to Philly.
No, great food scene. Big higher ed town, right? You got University of Pennsylvania there, you got Drexel, you got LaSalle, you got St. Joe's, you got Villanova.
Okay.
So similar to Boston, where we're both kind of the little brother to New York.
Sure.
But, so education is huge there, healthcare is huge there, in our sports.
Sick.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
Right up the road. Born in Houston here, but live up northwest in Cypress, Texas. You know, Houston, 4th largest city in the U.S. What?
Oh, I just laughed at you. Sorry. I said Houston.
Oh.
I just giggle.
Oh, I know.
I really love Houston.
was-
For everybody
it
else.
was rated as the
As a, like, I'll just clarify, as a small town guy, coming to a place like Houston is a lot. I'm okay with cities, but Houston's busy, yo.
It's busy, but everyone knows everyone here. It's still,
That's wild.
it's crazy, right? I mean, like I said, born and raised here. It was a different town, you know, back in the 80s and 90s. It's become, you know, a very diverse, multicultural melting pot city, which is awesome because, you know, our bread and butter industry here is oil and gas, right? Everything, you have Exxon here, you have Shell. I mean, everyone's here. Also big into the healthcare with our medical center. So it's a large city, but, you know, it's like that, what's that, Kevin Bacon, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever.
Yeah.
As you go talk to someone and you'll find out that you know the same people. So
What's the music scene like here? I know you get music. You're into music. You're a musician
boy.
yourself. What's the music scene like here?
Oh man, so you get me going now. So in Texas, there was a thing called Texas country or Texas music, which is kind of morphed into. It's a blend of like traditional country, like Hank or Merle or all the older guys, and then with some rock influences. So yeah, I was in a country band for 6-7 years of my life and toured all over the state and other parts, and it's a different genre of music. It's not the country you hear on the radio. But it's
my favorite kind.
Yeah, it's I mean it's relatable, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about rhyming to rhyme with beer.
It's a lot of storytelling.
It's a lot of storytelling, a lot of great artists. You know, the older guys like Robert Earl King and Pat Green, even to the younger guys like Parker McCollum's up and coming, Josh Ward, Cody Johnson, like all those guys, man. It's good music. So salt of the earth, guys.
That's Houston to you.
That's Houston.
I did have the pleasure to go to the Houston Rodeo
Oh yeah.
this year. So that was, I got to immerse myself into the Houston culture. You ask what Philly's known for. I feel like, you know, I lived here for 4 years when I was in the military at Fort Hood, but that Central Texas is a lot different than down here. And what an experience. I bought my first cowboy hat. It's very, very exciting. I feel like a kid from Philly with a cowboy hat. You know?
I got my first cowboy hat too.
How many X's? What was your cowboy? If you look at your cowboy hat, it'll say the beaver content.
Actually, no, it's a straw hat.
Oh, straw hat. All right.
Yeah.
Don't wear that in the winter. Don't wear it in the winter.
No.
Okay.
I was in Georgia and it was like 115 and like 100% humidity. So there's no getting a beaver pelt hat.
No, that's only for the winter.
Yeah. It was way too hot. But yeah, I'm stoked.
We'll go get you. You know, we'll go get you a hat today. We'll go find one today for you.
Heck yeah.
Seriously. Yeah.
You know, it's funny about, you know, Mike being so into music, and he was just talking about some of his favorite. He did take me, the only night that he could take me was Kenny Chesney. So that didn't really fit the mold of Mike the Mike.
Not at all.
But you know, I love Kenny. I know it's controversial. Okay, you're sorry. I know, but I get that a lot when I say I love Kenny because people like people like Kenny back in the day, the big orange ball floating, that kind of, or like his older stuff. I like his island music, and people go, "What?" I'm like, I love like that Jimmy Buffett Kenny,
right?
That Kenny.
Yeah, you and my neighbor, y'all can jam.
Yeah, Blue Rockin' Chair. That's my favorite.
I'm hoping T Swift is next year.
Personally, she's too big for this now. But the one highlight of the Houston Livestock Show. So for those Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, every town has like their large community event, right? Milwaukee has the music festival. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of it. But they have the large music festival, and Rodeo Houston is ours. And Sarno had the privilege to come, as he mentioned. And who winked at you, Sarno?
Rip from Yellowstone.
Yeah, Rip.
Seriously, there you go. There's your claim to fame right there.
I don't know if he's winking at my wife or Sarno, but one of them too. Yeah. Cole Hauser.
It really took Cole Hauser as a Sarno fan.
Summerfest. That's what it is. Milwaukee.
Summerfest.
That's what it is. Summerfest.
Yeah.
So
cool. Yeah, I got to make it down for the Houston Livestock Show there on the rodeo this year.
Yeah, come for the cook-off. So before the rodeo, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's the cook-off. So you have trail riders. So when you come down here, you'll see a trail ride, old wagons and horses coming down 290 highway or coming down 59 or wherever, make their way to the rodeo grounds or the Astrodome and Reliance Center. And then it's a 3-day party of barbecue and drinks. So
sick.
Quanta has a nice.
I bet they do.
They have a very nice.
I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I need to get to it this year.
Okay.
All right. So veteran Steve.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What branch were you serving in? What time frame?
Yeah.
Get up to?
Yeah. It's funny. We were just talking about pre-show about Montreal, and kind of take you back to the way beginning. I was in Montreal for spring break when I was in college when the war in Iraq kicked off 2003. And at that time, I had no even thoughts of going in the military. So I grew up, my grandparents, I said this on the last episode, but my grandfather and grandmother were both in the European theater in World War II. They'd spend every summer with us, and I got to hear their stories growing up. And for some reason, when that all happened in 2003, I just kind of got this, feeling like, hey, I remember them telling stories like I need to be a part of it, right? I'd feel guilty if I didn't do it at the time. I was kind of right at that age, right? I was 20 years old, and came back, told my parents, not received overly well, right? Because they worked their butt off to get me to school and get me to a position where they felt was a different path than that.
Sure.
But they weren't as privy to the ROTC and the officer path, right? So came back and I joined ROTC at Dickinson College, did the 2 years there. You get expedited a little bit. Like you actually have to go to like a little mini boot camp at Fort Knox, and then you go to the advanced camp, which is more like officer training. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into, to be honest. And I grew a ton in those 2 years. Like I played football in college, like I kind of the somewhat traditional American college journey, right? And that kind of turned it on its head. In senior year, graduated, got commissioned as a second lieutenant. For those that don't know, ROTC come out same level as West Point, same level as the military academies, and went and did my officer basic course. My unit was actually in Iraq when I got on the officer basic course. So at that time, she was my girlfriend, but my wife now knew within a couple weeks I'd be gone. So incredible experience. Went over there. We were in Northwest Baghdad, my first tour, at a place called Camp Taji, which at that time was a little dynamic in the fact that was close to where we caught Saddam. So it was very Sunni area. And anyway, it was a pretty dynamic area at the time. Came back. At that time, we basically rotated. It was 4th ID and 1st Cav were at Fort Hood, and 1st Cav replaced us. We came back, and we knew we'd be going back to replace them. So came back, trained for a year, which is also pretty interesting, right? You do this year with your platoon and with people that you get to know, and you go through a lot of things together, and then you come home, and that gets turned on its head too, and you get this whole influx of new people that you have to be able to build a culture and prepare, all that kind of, those kind of things. And went back again. This time we were in East Baghdad, more like the Shia area, which at that time it kind of flipped, went from Sunni to Shia influence. Anyway, did about 15 months the second time.
In one go.
Yeah. So spent over 2 years of my life, in Northwest and East Baghdad. And it was an incredible experience. I know I talked about it last time, but you watch movies and stuff about people taking over platoons, and you hear people tell those leadership stories, but I got to learn at a young age. Like, you learn obviously the basics to me of leadership if you're part of a sports team, or
what are the basics to you?
Well, number one for me is taking care of people. I always say that. Still true to this day. I mean, that's how I treat my team. That's a dynamic with my team, is we treat each other with respect. We agree on a common goal, and we take care of one another. Like, I like to think our team, at least on the utility team, and at Milwaukee too, is family. And that's part of what builds that culture, is that connection point, right? It's not transactional. Like, we've been in this thing together, is what I tell people. So number one for me is taking care of people, and holding each other accountable is a part of that. Those are probably the two big ones for me. And having fun along the way. I think that helps build the culture. Like, if we're working hard, playing hard, I think that's Milwaukee culture too. Like, we have a lot of things at Milwaukee that are kind of our culture, that we've captured over the years. I think we hire and retain the people that live that culture. And we're in it together. And if you're not in it, I can tell pretty quickly, and we find you a new home. So, but yeah, they're the two big ones for me is
when you came back and you said like you got an influx of new people. I'm asking this question because this on small scale happens within the utility industry quite a bit, where your crews get jumbled up. And even last night at the Lazy Q, learning about this Quanta Lead program, which is really about bringing up the foreman level leader within Quanta. And what the leadership talked about was like, we want you as a foreman to feel like you can raise that guy up below you. Like, everyone has that guy or that group of people around them that really make them who they are. And they don't want to lose them, right? Imagine losing that second or that third hand that's like your guy or your girl.
Yeah.
But the idea is like, you need to raise them up, and then you need to like promote them.
100%.
Like, you need to let them go and like bring another flow through. So what's some advice around that? Because it sounds like something that you dealt with on a large scale as well. You got this influx of new people that you got to raise up, and you got to trust the guys below you. Speak that a little bit.
I'll start at Milwaukee and work back.
Sure.
Because that is our culture at Milwaukee. When I say taking care of people, like if it's someone on my team, I tell them like 18 months, like, come learn this industry and get onto the next channel so you can learn the business, the industry, round yourself out so you're more marketable for your long-term career. So to me, that's a big part of being a leader, is how you develop people, get them ready for the next level. And we have this kind of next man up mentality at Milwaukee, which I think is really similar to the military mindset, right? Is we're there to develop. Like, what's crazy to me looking back on it now is just how young we all were, right? I was a 24-year-old leading, guys that were 42 to 18, 17 sometimes. So I think what I probably wasn't necessarily ready for was that 17, 18, 19-year-old. I was ready to lean on my non-commissioned officers, right? Like, they're the backbone of the Army. They help develop you as a young lieutenant so that you can go on and do more things. Like, that is their job. Like, they run the platoon, and you get to learn from them. And part of that was me and my platoon sergeant, let's say, acknowledging those younger guys and making sure we understood like what their challenges were, where they came from. Like, it is a melting pot. Like, that's the other piece to the military, is understanding the backgrounds, the cultural differences.
Yeah.
We had guys from Samoa, we had guys from middle of Texas, we had guys from Seattle. Like, that's a whole thing you need to embrace in the military that I think, as a kid from Philly, right? Like, I'd never left Philly. I didn't really have that worldly. I think I went on my first flight when I was 18, right? Like, anyway, so I think that is a big piece, is meeting people where they're at, understanding where they want to go. Like some people don't want to necessarily do more, but you help them get to where they want to go. And that's what we do at Milwaukee too with our team.
That's great advice, because that's like literally what the utility industry is like especially in the Powerline sector. With how transient we are, you're constantly getting new people that are rotating through your crews, and you have to build up this new person. And you might have this like little clique that you go with or whatever, that you travel with. It's your 3 or 4 or 5 people, depending on size. You go to a big transmission project, it's like, I need these guys to come with me, and you got your 3 or 4 guys, but then it's your job to like staff up. Let's get 20 other guys around us, and let's try to make them successful and figure out who they are. And it's all ages. And
I think you guys do a good job of it too. One other thing we try to do, both military and Milwaukee, is make sure people understand where they are, right? Like that was a cool thing about the Army, is you look at the lineage of a unit, and you talk about, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, like something's that history, right? That culture and what you're part of. Like it's a special thing. And we do the same thing in Milwaukee, where we were talking about it right before we came on. Not everyone at our organization has been along the journey that Mike and I have. Like we understood in the earlier days of our success, right? This 20% growth rate for a decade plus, what it took to get here. But now we have younger folks coming in that weren't a part of it. And that's not their fault, right? But that's on us as leaders to make sure they understand what they joined, what it took to get here, and what their path can be at being a part of a special, in my opinion, a special company. So
for sure. Yeah. Like, in your opinion, what makes a good leader?
Oh man, a good leader is someone who respects, like Sarno says, treat the team well. But it's someone who just respects and listens to others, listens to their opinions. Kind of like that golden rule too. Treat ones how you want to be treated, and set clear, concise objectives, and then let's move this thing forward. Right? Our organization's had some great leaders, and we've been blessed to have them. And just working with that team, like Scott Tison, he's taught me a lot. Scott Capriva, they taught me a lot, right? Different aspects of the business, right? Scott's kind of gotten into some of the weeds of teaching me on how to, manage up, and Capriva kind of got into the weeds of teaching me how to do some more of the financial impact stuff. So, and Sarno's done a lot of stuff to kind of round out my career, but it's those ones who understand what an individual's good at, tap into it, and then also fix the stuff that, or not really fix, but improve the stuff that they see in the individual. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, totally.
All right.
Is that everything that Milwaukee has done for you? And like, who implemented that, and when did it start to happen for you?
Well, we have that leadership development program, right? So we bring in young kids, this recent college grads. We put them into our, what we call LDP, leadership development program, and they kind of learn the business, learn the culture, learn everything. And they really learn that Milwaukee's going to support them. And Milwaukee's going to, it's not just about a tool company, it's about a career and how they're going to navigate them and get them ready to take on any role within the organization or even outside the organization. So we have a cultural term, and you've seen it, empowered leaders, right? They empower each of us to make those decisions, empower us to grow the business, and empower us to be responsible with the business and responsible with what our objectives are. So,
how are some ways they actually empower you to do that? Like what are the, give an example?
Gas. You want to talk gas utility?
Oh, yeah. So prime example. Yeah, thank you. A couple of years ago, the organization came to me and the team and says, hey, you know what, we're starting to understand more about power, but how do we look at the other divisions? How do we look at gas utility? So Mike, I want you to kind of build a research project on it, and go get it. Well, I know zero about gas, and so it was up to me to kind of, and working with cross-functionally with other leaders in the industry or leaders in the company to kind of scope it out, right? How to bring product in, how to bring channel in, how to bring our IC business in, and say, okay, how do we go, or what do we know about gas? How do we learn about the gas utility? and how do we get after it, right? And then once we did that, we hired an individual, Jeremy Guttridge, has been with us for 2 years. He's taken it to the next level of learning the industry, learning our contact points, what's the industry look like now, what's the industry look like in the future. And now we're building a team next year, or this year, next year we'll be building adding on to the team,
Sure.
to really go after it. So the company entrusted me, a $10 billion company, to trust me to go after a very important segment, a new vertical of our business, and says, you got it, you know what to do. There was no playbook, like you need to talk to him, talk to her, whatever, figure it out. Okay, and we did it.
And obviously it's not usually, you bring a grassroots idea up to the org, like, we're a big company. It's not like, okay, signed off, go. Like Mike had to do a lot. Like we don't just enter a space, like we come in to disrupt a space. So we have to work cross-functioning with our product teams, with our channel teams, like from a program marketing perspective, like what is our plan to come in and own it, not just come in and bring our bag of goods that we can sell. And that's what's, I think, going to be fun over the next couple of years based off what Mike's built.
Yeah, and kind of like what we did with Power, like go back to 2015, started what we talked about last time is, no one really, people knew the brand, but they didn't really associate the brand with the power utility industry. And now it's hopefully kind of synonymous. So what we got to do there is do the same thing, is don't put our toe in the water when we go after gas utility, jump in head first, and let's get after it in a big way.
I can't imagine how you guys determine what to go after. Like, yeah, it's probably discussions that happen in big rooms like every day, but how do you even figure that out? Never mind like a sector or products even within the sector. Like, how do you even determine what to go after?
I think there's a lot that goes into it.
Milwaukee could do anything.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, we can talk a little bit about some of the things we're looking at, but obviously there's some government things that are tied to it, right? If you look at the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill, aging infrastructure, et cetera, like where are the dollars going? Like that's a piece of it. Like if you look at outdoor power equipment for us here in the States, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but like a state like California, right, starting to ban gas engines.
Sure.
So like with our prowess in battery technology, that is an obvious place for us to focus, and we got
Population dense and all this.
Yeah, and we're going to learn a ton in California and how we can replicate it.
There's no water, so the grass doesn't grow.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think the strategy then?
And it's cool too to look at things like that to see what's adjacent, right? Like obviously linemen use a ton of chainsaws, right? So whatever innovation we're going to bring for that industry, where else does it fit? I think when you look back to power, right? Going back to that 2008 time frame, right? We weren't focused. That's what Steve came in and saw right away, was we were not focused as an organization, and we wanted to go back to our roots, which our roots were in mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We got synonymous with those trades through the Sawzall and the right angle drill through the 50s and the 60s, the 70s, the bandsaw. And that's where we wanted to focus to start to build and own our core trades. And fast forward, like we built a great relationship with NECA and the IBW and Electrical Training Alliance. And they were like, you guys are doing a great job for our commercial side of the business. There's this whole big segment in the utility industry that is prime for you guys to come in and enter. And when we started to look in there, I'll let Mike take it in a sec, but when we started to look there, we knew there was innovation we could drive with battery technology. And you look at, in some of our first conversations, you walk into a room, you ask a group of linemen, hey, who's had shoulder problems, who has carpal tunnel? Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the first things. And that is where we started and worked backwards, was how do we make these tools more ergonomic? How do we extend the lifetime of a lineman so that they can work later in their career if they choose to? What's that?
And buy more tools.
Yeah, and buy more tools.
More products, more solutions, everything.
Yeah. But that was kind of
safety first, but
yeah. Well, there was just, this industry hadn't been disrupted, in our opinion, by a major brand in a long time, and that's where, as soon as we started exploring and we started making connections, we're like, let's go.
Like Sarno said, like we had it was pretty cool. I mean, we hear that term all the time, history repeats itself, and it did, right? We were a big brand for MEP back in the day. We kind of lost sight. Our leadership came in, reestablished it. We grew it, the MEP division, and it's like, what else do we need to start, taking on? And obviously electrical has, power, electrical has datacom, electrical has this, right? If you start subsecting the verticals, you saw opportunities everywhere. Yeah, and then now, like what we mentioned, was kind of going after gas, right? We go talk to we go talk to a utility, like, hey, CenterPoint here in Houston, right? We have a power division. Well, we're in the halls, we're already in the doors, or we're already in the customer. Why not go talk to the gas division? Let's understand them, right? And there's opportunities there.
Yeah, it's been a good fit for us too.
And you guys, guys, I mean, Wanta too, right? You have your power side of the business, and you have all your gas guys too, right? So you just see how the pieces start kind of coming together.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah, I think too, like we learned, like,
you guys are students as much as you are. Yeah.
I
like that aspect.
Yeah.
Like we talked about that on the last show as well. I liked what you guys did with the power utility sector. You didn't just like come in and like, here's your thing. You come in and like, what do you need? All right, let's problem solve. Let's figure out what you need and how we can make it work for you.
Yeah.
Classic example is a longer handle for a lineman with a rubber glove because you can't fit the drill in your hand or the impact gun or whatever it is, right? Little things like that, they matter.
Yeah. And that even, I mean, I think we talked 6-ton last time, but when we first entered with their 6-ton tool, like, there were some things we missed. And we're humble enough to say, hey, we missed it, and we're going to life cycle this, and we're going to integrate every piece of feedback we got from a lineman to make this thing better.
Instead of just pushing the same product for eternity.
Even take like a remote cutter, right? We have a cutter that can do, it's connected via Bluetooth, and you can set it up in the Volt and get out of the Volt and make the cut, right? So there's no spiking necessarily needed anymore. We kind of eliminated a step of the process, and then we put the field of the lineman in a safer environment, right, away from the potential energized line, right? So it wasn't just like here's our cutter. It was, how do we innovate, right? Well, we came out the Bluetooth remote cutter for 3-inch, and we just came out the 5-inch one this year.
How does that idea get developed? Like that's through like talking to
you guys, yeah.
And the guys like, hey, I need a remote way. I need a way to get out of the hole.
Yeah, we always love it when we go out. Like, I think we always use our grips as an example. You go out and you watch, like, linemen are some of the best innovative folks out there, and you learn about what the challenges are based on how they sometimes manipulate a tool, right? We always talk about how you tighten down one of our grips, right? And we saw a guy like welding on a little piece to the end of it so they can tighten it down even further. So it's all grassroots, from the user. I was just going to say real quick, and then Mike, I'll turn to you, but one of the things, I'm glad you brought up the kind of students. So one thing that we do from a culture standpoint, and we continue to do, I think we're going to do it again, is we read a book called Leading with Questions. So I think coming out of, like, some of our younger generation coming out of school, when they think of a salesperson, it's go in, pitch this product, pitch this promotion, etc. And we study how to ask thoughtful questions so that the customer, the user, can take you to a place that you may not even know about, right? It's not about selling, it's about partnering, understanding what the challenges are, and whether it's tools, whether it's programs, whether it's your rep, whatever it is, right? You just got to ask the right questions, not go in and,
I love that.
Yeah.
Same thing in the podcasting realm. That's what I've had to learn is like, I would listen to podcasts now, and I still do. I listen to it from the perspective of the person asking the questions, which is a complete mind flip for a lot of people. Just listen to what the person they're interviewing has to say about whatever said subject it is. Well, I'm listening to the interviewer and how they asked a question, words they used, how they like pulled that thread a little bit. I try to apply that to like how, and it makes a world of difference.
100%. We, one of the best, I think I've been fortunate to be, obviously Steve is an amazing leader for our organization, and he does a really good job when we're in meetings of asking those questions to make sure you've thought through every nook and cranny, or you're right. Like, you can't go in there with a half-assed plan. And early in the military, I learned it too. And I think that's kind of where, you pull it forward. I had a battalion commander. He's now Lieutenant General McKean. He's a 3-star general. When we were in Iraq the second time, I remember for whatever in my brain, a good leader in the military was barking orders for some reason. Okay. That's what I thought I was going to step into. Hey, I follow orders. You tell me what to do and go.
It's the same in the utility space. Yeah.
Whenever we had a staff meeting, it was all questions from him. He wanted to make sure we thought through every single angle so that when we went out and deployed a mission, guys were safe, right tactics. Obviously, you can only have such a good plan until you get punched in the mouth type of thing. But he made sure when you came into that meeting, you were dialed in. So
that's amazing. I love that you brought that up, and I love that people listening are hearing that right now. So let that sink in. That's not the way to lead, is bark orders or tell your crew exactly everything you've learned in life. Ask good questions, continue to ask good questions, and then respond to whatever their answers are. Maybe they did miss something, and now you have some input on that thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of this. I probably never told you this. I had a pretty cool college professor for history, Reconstruction to Modern Times, at Stephen F. Austin State University, Axiom Jacks.
UT.
Yeah, now we're UT. But Dr. Hines, and what he did was, it was a Tuesday night class, 3-hour class. And the first day, Merrill walked in here, and he says, I don't give quizzes, I don't grade attendance, I don't give tests, I don't give homework, and I don't give lectures. And you're well, this is going to be an easy class. Where are we going on here? He wanted us to go do the research ourselves because he knows it. And then we had to come back and tell him. We had those conversations. We spoke about it. We talked about it. Even if we were wrong, he wanted you just to engage. You could said, the sky is green. You're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong. And that's how really we kind of flipped it. And what's cool was the class was 3 hours, and groups would come in for hour time slots. And over the course of the semester, the groups would change. And the groups that spoke a lot, which I was clearly in, that group made the A in the class. The group that kind of spoke made the B, and the group that just sat there and didn't engage and have conversations, they're the ones that made the C. So it was to ask the questions, engage, have those conversations, and learn that way versus someone kind of lecturing and telling you and you just taking notes, right? Go do get the information, gather information, do the research yourself, and then spit it back out.
I think that leads back to the question about how do we empower our people? A lot of times, if you ask the right questions, that'll help dictate where we want to go too, right? Getting that feedback from the team, if you get a really good piece of feedback, that could dictate strategy, that could dictate where we go in the future, and that creates that buy-in.
You have to do the work in order to learn the thing too. You can't just study it, you have to do it. And lineman, it's built into the program of apprenticeship, and how you learn in trades and in line work is you have to go do the thing. You can go to school, sure, we go to school for a few weeks a year, but it's really only a few weeks a year. It's 5 weeks every 14 months for 3.5, 4 years. And the real learning comes when you take that and you just go apply it, and you apply it again and again and again and again until you learn how to do that thing. Whatever, setting a pole, saw in a bank. Yeah. You got to do the thing. You got to do the work.
Yeah.
But kids, I keep calling them kids, but the new men and women in the trade and in the industry, this is the thing that I keep hearing from the people that are teaching them, is they're just avoiding doing the actual thing. They want the shortcut. They want, not everyone, I know I'm generalizing here, but
it's the instant gratification piece of the current culture, in my opinion, right? We're so used to, if I don't know the answer to something, I'll just Google it, right? Or whatever.
I think find the information.
Yeah. And I think I'm on that, I guess, beginning end of that culture, right? We grew up with that. But to your point, do the work, in for us, even for me, when I was coming up through Milwaukee, I wanted that next thing. And I think I look back now and I appreciate some of the folks that were pump the brakes, learn where you're at, and then you'll know when you're ready for that next piece.
It was interesting. I listened to your podcast with Duke and talking about like the generation, and he mentioned that it's not that they're not smarter. Are we teaching them this stuff? I think he mentioned like about the oil change or like change the tire, right?
Yep.
They don't know how to do it because we haven't taught them to do it, right? It's something basic and simple, but now we just...
Well, that's true. That's true for us. I'm sure it's true for you guys.
We forget about the basics sometimes.
We're actually we're investing heavily. Like we've grown so fast that we're getting back to the basics, and we're investing in a field training team in a really big way. Like there's kind of the corporate side of things, right? You go back and you learn the blocking and tackling, and then probably similar to apprenticeship is then you get in the field and you learn actual how to do it. And I think it's a great point that Mike brought up. I watched that episode too, is we got to make sure, like, we can't just expect it that they come in. Like we're taking a couple steps back, investing heavily to say, this is how you do it. And then you let them go do it. So,
yeah, I remember when I first got in management, I had to teach a few people on my team how to look someone in the eye and shake their hand. Like, you're in sales. Like, that's sales 101, right? It's not that. I just don't know if anyone taught them, right? I've been brought up that way. Sarno's been brought up that way, you know. It was something so, like, duh.
Right.
Can you do this?
It's true, though.
But it's nothing. They have talent somewhere else that I don't even know about, right? Like, so.
Yeah. I was just talking to a couple foremen last night, and that's one thing that they mentioned was, I brought it up with Duke as well, and it goes along the lines of what you're just mentioning, but like that taking an apprentice or that lower level person under your wing and like saying, come on, I'm going to teach you what I know, you know, come on this journey with me. I'm going to take it in whatever level I'm at. I'm going to bring you up. And it's everybody's responsibility to do that. But a lot of people now, foremen, linemen out there are going like, I don't want to teach anybody. It's not my job. It's not my job to teach that guy. But it is your job to teach that guy.
That's how a journey and apprenticeship.
That's how a trade works. It's journeyman, apprentice master, apprentice journeyman 100%. Relationship, and it is everyone's responsibility. It was someone else's responsibility to teach you. You didn't learn how to do it on your own as much as you think you might have. It wasn't the deal. It's our responsibility to do that. So I love that you brought that up.
And we have I wouldn't say a similar structure, but on the utility team, what's cool about our team, and we're structured a little bit different than some of the other areas of the business, just due to the technical side of your guys' work. We kind of have that journeyman apprentice relationship, if you will, where we have what we call a CAM team, and our CAM team ranges anywhere from 30 years with the company to probably 10 years with the company. And because we bring in new folks from colleges and whatnot that don't know anything about the utility or lineman trade, we have a group of regional managers that are responsible for a given geography and a given team, but we lean heavily on those CAMs to teach the younger folks what right looks like, the vernacular, the jargon, the applications, like you kind of name it. Like, and that's where, like, that is our backbone, in my opinion, is those folks that help train the younger generation come in, like we talked about earlier, come in, learn the trade, learn the program, learn the tools, and then go on and do something else. And that's their responsibility. And luckily for us, they embrace that. They are a dotted line leader, and they take that extremely seriously. So
whether you're in the field as a craft skill labor, or you're in the office and it's like you're talking management and the team you manage, it's the same principles. It's the same thing. Take them under, show them what, you know, there's not enough teaching and passing down anymore. Really isn't, from my perspective.
I think for us too, even, shout out to our regional manager team. We got texts coming in here. We sent them a picture of the new setup. They're all geeked out. But even for us, like, we have a leadership development program, like Mike mentioned, where you come up and you learn the textbook or the scholastic side of how to lead people. But again, that's reading about it and then putting it into practice is a whole different thing. And that's outside of the training our team, like kind of boots on ground. We've invested heavily this year on the regional manager side of things too, because we always say we promote people before they're ready.
Stretch them.
Yeah, we stretch them, but then you put them in that role. they may have never been trained ever of how to lead or manage a person outside of textbook, right? So
let them go. You let them struggle. Everyone needs to struggle, but like be there
yeah,
for them.
yeah. And make
They'll
sure
figure
they're
it out. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like sink or swim. We're not like
No.
No.
I'm not saying that you guys, I'm just saying generally, like the people listening is like, I love that. Promote them, let them struggle, but also be there to
guide them.
Guide 'em.
Right, yeah.
Like,
Distance and
don't
direction.
just let them, that's what's happening is you're just letting them go.
Yeah.
We even kicked off what we call we have a mentor-mentee program that we're a part of. So it's just another resource for them, and it's I have a person that reports to me, Andrew, and it's more of just learning the business, kind of a different perspective, right? It's more of just conversations like this, right? Here's a scenario, Mike, I need help with. You've been in the industry for 18 years. What's some of your knowledge that you can transfer to me, right? So it is, to Sarno's point, kind of like a journeyman and apprentice type of relationship. And
that's how we try to stay small, too, right? Like one of the guys that's my mentee is helping us start the outdoor power sales team. So he's experiencing a lot of the challenges Mike and I experienced when we scaled this team up. And it's awesome just to hear where they're at and kind of spark a memory of where we were and kind of just be like, dude, you're good. And like, don't, you're going to go through those tough times, the ebbs and flows of starting a business. And that's one of my favorite things that we do, to be honest, is that mentor-mentee thing and help coach each other. And that's how we stay small,
Yeah.
You talk about the culture at Milwaukee. Is this how you make a good culture? What's your take on how you brew a great company culture? Because not every company nails it.
I think it's all about, we always say it's all about people and culture. Like that's when you hear our CEO speak, people, culture are bookends. But the way that you get to that culture is right people, right seats, in my opinion. Obviously having that strategic vision from tops down, but a lot of times it's grassroots up too, right? That's what helps. When I think I talked about this last time, but when we went to kind of scale up our culture, it was all about capturing what people felt that our culture was, right? Which for some of the words would scare people. Obsessed is one of our cultural
That's on your wall, right?
Yeah. And that's what, in order to be successful at Milwaukee, you have to have that obsessed mindset. Like that's what, I mean, that's the way we've gotten to where we are is, and then never settle, always improving is another one. Candid is honestly, I think when you talk about building a culture, that is one, you leave the ego at the door, in our company, and we are very candid. It's never disrespectful, but we tell each other how it is and where we're right and where we're wrong and hold each other accountable. And
kind candor.
Yeah.
So the cool thing, like we've always kind of had this, we've had our culture, and it wasn't probably till like 17 that we kind of started really taunting or not, making it more visible. So when you said, how do you build culture? I think it's really the visibility too, right? If everyone's fully aligned that this is our cultural expectations, these are our cultural words, and everyone can actually go back and reference it because it's not hidden away somewhere. I didn't know I can be candid. Well, it's right there. It's in your face, right? It's on your laptop. It's in every building in our facility, right? I
was going to say, to give our leadership a ton of credit, is every single employee that enters Milwaukee sits in a session with Steve, our rich man, who's our president, and they talk about culture. Every single employee. So that, I don't want to say indoctrinate, right? But you get to know what you're getting yourself into and whether you want to be a part of it or not. And the other thing they did in that 2017 timeframe that I think resonated with me of what great leadership looks like, that entire executive team, like all Steve's direct reports, they went out to every major market and did a fireside chat with the team to talk about culture and make sure that so that obviously it's a big company, right? Thousands of employees, to make sure everyone's bought in. And that includes you saw at West Bend, that includes our operations facilities, our Olive Branch, Mississippi is our distribution center. Everywhere we have a culture wall, and everyone knows what our culture is when you get into it.
That right there drove the alignment for everyone.
Yep.
Everyone knows the expectations. There's nothing, like I said, nothing's hidden. it's just a few, not buzzwords, but it's a few words that very meaningful in our organization that drives that alignment. People get it, they eat it, they drink it, they sleep it, and there's nothing to hide. So this is how we operate.
You can measure it.
Nothing to scare them, right?
It's great. It gives every single person a starting point to measure their decision making.
Yep.
And they go, okay, should I do this?
Yep.
Is it applying this X? Yeah. Is it applying this X? Like, yeah. Okay. This is good. Best decision I can make.
Yep.
Right here.
Yeah, and the other one was it was like the empowered leaders, kind of going back to that conversation, right? Like it allows everyone to become leaders in the organization, right? It's not just about your tenure working there and you're a leader. It's everyone can be empowered to become a leader in our organization.
To me, the one that sticks out, that is to me our heartbeat, is one team mentality. We used to have a structure where it was kind of you go out and get it, and that's how you got paid, right? It was never about the person next to you. And now everyone is connected as one team. That's from tops down. Like, we drive this thing together, and we're going to be successful together, and we're going to be not successful together. But that is, our boss, Bill Hughes, I think almost every time we hear him on a conference call, he ends like, this is the one team mentality. This is how we do it. And that's how we look at everything.
One team, one goal.
Mike and I can't be successful in power utility without the product team being involved. We can't be successful without the channel team being involved. Can't be successful without the leadership team being involved. Like
manufacturing, distribution, the field, to everyone, right? It takes
quality, service, kind of name it. Like, we're connected. We are aligned. That's how we keep this thing moving forward. So
it sounds like in order to innovate, you need to be aligned like this. Is that the key to innovate? How Milwaukee continues to innovate?
Yeah. We we just had an exercise last week. Like, you talk about being obsessed, and obviously anytime that we go into one of our customers, one of our end users, we look, head on a swivel to understand where we're winning, where we're not. You look in the tool room, hey, are we getting the 6-ton business? Are we getting the wrench business? Are we getting, et cetera? And he had an interaction with, Steve had an interaction with one of our users that they're a Milwaukee user, but there was one tool that they didn't use that was ours, and it was due to form factor and where the application was being performed, and ours didn't hit the mark, which prompted us to really look at and do some self-reflection to say, where can we stay on offense? Like, we had a meeting with our president of Power Tools and our counterparts on the product team to align on where can we drive that kind of leapfrog innovation where we keep our competitors on notice, if you will, and then where do we need to play defense? Like, where's our flank open? And the only way that we can get there, to your point, is making sure that we prioritize as a unit what our biggest threats are and what our biggest opportunities are. So that's what makes Milwaukee tick, man, is that cross-functional dialogue and one team mentality.
This goes on every day. This goes on with every person. This is not just us two.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to hear about, because it sounds like anybody could go and sample this from anybody that works for Milwaukee and say, like, explain culture, explain this, explain that.
Yeah.
And you're going to get very similar stuff, which is impressive for like multinational organization to have that sort of culture. It's impressive to see. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of notes people could take from it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit beforehand. Like, our goal right now, from my opinion, is as we get bigger, is how do we stay small, right? Especially even our team, when we've grown by 25 people since the last time we've talked, right? And how do you stay small? How do you stay connected? Like, we do skip level meetings, with all of our employees to make sure I'm not just getting feedback from the regionals. I get it from boots on ground to say, hey, this is effed up, or this is going well. This is what we need to look at. Anyway, I think I agree. Like, that's the cool thing about the Milwaukee culture is it's not isolated. Like, everyone's bought in, or else you're probably not on the team.
And it's part of my job to ask these sorts of questions and relate it back to the guy listening that's just running a crew, and he's like, well, how? But in my mind, it directly applies to just you and your 3-man crew, if you want, or your 4-man crew. It's like, take these principles, treat it like a business, treat the little 4-man crew like a business, like improve that culture, and start improving the culture of the people around you, because they see how you're acting, how you're leading, and how you're treating your people. And you could ask any one of them, what do you guys believe in the most? Or like get a little mantra or something, like it sounds all silly, but that's how
it's a good point. I mean, it's the individual, the apprentice, they're committed to the industry. Are they committed to you? Right. And it depends on that culture that you're driving and you're adopting. And if it's not a good culture, you can look at changing it. Right. Yeah. It's a good old boys club. At the same time, there's people that want to strive to do improvement, learn more, faster pace. Take them under your wing. Like I said, when you ask me what makes a good leader, is that person that can see that in the individual, tap into what they're good at, and help them get to the next level of stuff that maybe they're not, maybe they're lacking in. Right?
Pick one guy out there now listening, like one guy. Say you're a foreman out there listening right now, and you go, okay, how do I apply any of this stuff? Well, look at what we've talked about. Like, am I a yeller or do I ask questions? Look at Milwaukee, a company that's massive. How do they get to where they are? Oh, their leader asked questions. Okay, well, maybe I should start asking more questions than yelling at my guys. There's like one tick, ding, like take that right down to an apprentice. Like, how do I become that? Oh, I got to ask more, better questions. Maybe I should read a couple books on how to ask questions. There's a great one out there by the master, just for anyone that is listening. Larry King wrote a book called How to Talk to Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere. And I recommend this book to anybody. It's like super simple to read, super thin. And it's literally about how to have engaging conversations with people who did it for a living. This guy did it for his whole life and he's a master at it.
Yeah.
It's like little things. It's like looking people in the eyes. It's, like leaning in and asking, emphasizing if it's little things like that you could do to like all of a sudden set yourself apart from the people beside you. If you're an apprentice, set yourself apart in a different way, just like being more engaging, it's cool stuff.
And I think like I feel like we always skip over this or the last 2 times we've talked, but I do think 2 other things I think that kind of make us who we are. One is the thoughtful leadership too. We kind of talked about being a family and whatnot. And I think, Mike and I both used to work for Scott Tison. And I think this was something he was always dynamite at, is kind of that birthday piece, knowing like you're, sending gifts on like certain things, right? If it's Veterans Day, hey, here's a knife for Veterans Day. Thanks for everything. Like kind of those little things that you get from a leader that connect you to him outside of that transactional side of things. And I think, for our business unit, like what Bill does and what Scott Tison does, like it's not just about driving a number and being a part of a company. Like we're a family. Like if you ask me what keeps me at Milwaukee and what keeps me motivated, it's the people, 100%. The servant leadership piece, right? My team, like how do we keep this thing moving for them? But then also the people to my flank with Mike, and then the people I work for. Like it's not just about, like I'm connected to them personally. It's not just about the transactional work relationship. The other piece is building relationships. And I know this is a big one. It's huge in the utility industry in general, but I feel like we probably don't take credit for how good some of our people are at that. Like the way that we got started, and a lot of credit goes to Mike. There's another guy, Russ Carlson, up in the Northeast, Brent Alfonso, like some of the guys who were the early cams for us that started this thing.
Vince Coker,
yeah. It was about, to your point, how do you get an executive's time that's at a conference that you're just a tool vendor? Like, I don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean? How do you break down that barrier, connect with that person, and build a long-lasting relationship so we can learn from his crews and we can be connected to his crews? We can do business together. That's also, I think, a talent that I've learned from my peers. It can't be transactional. Like people work for people. People do business with people. Like it's such an important piece to what you guys do, and obviously it's instrumental to what we do.
What would you say, like, how do you grow and foster relationships then? What's your tactics? Give something
like I'll let Mike.
Somebody can take away and go on whatever level.
It's just asking those questions, right? It's dropping the guard, dropping the barrier. You put your pants on like I put my pants on. Just talk to them normal, right? And tap into what's interested to them. I just have normal conversations.
Genuine, authentic.
Yeah, authentic conversation, man. Like,
An
how's the
observation
family?
from me of like yourself is
Handsome.
Well, if we get past the like really, really good looking part, honestly, is you give without expectation, and that's a quality that I think can really help grow and foster a relationship. Is like, I'm genuinely here for the relationship, and I'm going to give and give and give, and I don't expect anything, and in the end, you get so much more from that than like,
Absolutely.
Here's this thing, and you're like, buy this,
Right.
Yeah, I don't knock on your door and go buy something.
No, it's about building relationships.
So you can build your relationships, face to face. You can start a text group, and just, it's whatever. You can connect with people in different ways, right? And we have leadership text messages. We have team text messages, and if you look at them, it's mostly smack talking about football, or giving guys praises if they're doing stuff in the industries. It's what would you call it? A thought leadership type of stuff. It's just being who you are, right?
Being authentic, being genuine, building trust, earning trust. Just doing what you say you're going to do. Kind of a lot of the basics, but it sounds so simple. But like, it's incredible to see some of the relationships our team has built over the year, and at what level. Like, we always talk about working up and down in org, right? Like, we have to have the same relationship we do with the grunt that we do with the executive, right? Like, that's how our business works. Like, that's how we learn from you guys. Like, we got to get that perspective from the guy on the ground, or the journeyman, or the executive, so that we make sure we're taking everything into consideration. So it's not just about, like, to your point, like, we want to, it's all about learning. And if we're being authentic and being genuine, asking the right questions and being vulnerable, like, we're gonna get that connection.
I mean, it was cool to see, this year, 2023 was Utility Expo. And did you go to the expo?
I didn't this year, no.
And even like the International Lineman Rodeo, right? We're there to support, and you just look over and you see how the team has built relationships and fostered friendships, right? It's not even about industry relationships, it's about friendships, right? And they know when we walk in, we're here to support their business. We're not here for transactional. We're here to learn, take your feedback, take your information, and then how can we fix that problem? How we can provide a solution? I mean, we do it with David Ball at the Q, right? He's kind of challenged us on some stuff that we're looking at, and it's just being, as Sarno said, being authentic, right? And at the expo, it was cool to see all those relationships. You had some guys stop by our booth, Quanta did, and just to say hello and check in. They didn't have to do it. It's cool to see it.
What's the funnest tool for you guys to sell?
Oh boy,
what do you enjoy the most? If you had to pick one
tool, maybe a category over a tool.
What's your category then?
I'd tell you, it's our new USA hand tools, right? I mean, they're top quality. It's people know us for our battery powered products, right? And as we expand into new solutions for the trades, this one hands down, a lot of them do, but this one hands down, the tools is the feedback that you guys have given us over the years. Like, hey, in order to do USA, or in order to do hand tools, they need to be made domestically. It's like challenge accepted, right? And we opened up our new facility last year, and it's already it's growing and it's already booming, right? So that particular product, it's one of those, it's just cool to see that this shows our support, shows our dedication, shows our focus, and shows that how we listen to what you've requested, and we're going to deliver to the marketplace.
It's hard to come into a hand tool space and go, we're going to innovate hand tools.
That's at
we're coming in, guys. Look out. We're going to be a disruptor in hand tools. How do you do?
If you ever hear Tim Albrecht's our president of hand tools, it's like usually one of his go-tos. Like, one of the last things the industry needed was another hand tool brand, right? Like, there's so many out there. And when we started it, I think we started with an initial 11. It wasn't just about, like we always say, lick and stick, right? Like, you can go to a supplier overseas and say, hey, I want that one, put my brand on it. For us, it was all about, we talked about coming in and disrupting the space. It was those small, intricate pieces of innovation that we see guys doing in the field, and how can we make this better for the end user? So it wasn't about the lick and stick model. It was about grassroots feedback from the user, integrate it, disrupt and
launch it,
convert versus some of our competition.
See, there's only one way. There's only one way to do that, is to like know who your audience is specifically. Like, so it's just full circle. I love how it's full circle. It's you guys really paying attention to the absolute end user and actually knowing who the end user is. There's a lot of companies out there that don't even understand who their audience is or who their end user is. Never mind know specifically what they need.
Yeah.
That's a focus, right?
Yeah.
We came into the space and we understood that we're going to go after this particular group with this particular products, and we're going to more importantly learn about it, and then how do we expand the portfolio, right? Our marketing team, our product marketing team, they travel. I mean, we travel a lot, you travel a lot, they travel probably more than both of us, and they're out there eagerly asking the questions, looking for opportunities. One thing, like another hand tool, right? Not to talk product, but like your lineman wrench, what do you call it? Everyone has different names for it, but like the 3-in-1 lineman wrench. Not go wrench. Oh, David Ball's going to hit me up on that one now. Your Lowell wrench, your Lowell wrench. Yeah. So like when we came out, we went and looked at, there was a lot of those type of wrenches that are just being, this damaged, beat to shit, right? Well,
everything's a hammer tool.
Everything's a hammer. And what do? We built a forged one with a hammer face and strike face on it. So it was like that disruptive innovation. We could have came out, like you said, the lick and stick model, put Milwaukee, paint it red, here you go. That does nothing for you, does nothing for the user, does nothing for the industry. Us going over and solving something and saying, whatever tool a lineman has in their hand at that moment in time is a hammer. If it's a screwdriver, it's a hammer. If it's a lower or lineman wrench, it's a hammer.
And it's not just like a gimmick. It's rated and engineered and tested as a hammer.
And it's a hammer.
That can also be a wrench. Yeah.
We listened to the customer, and that one, I don't know if people said put a hammer on it. It was just more of a taking a step back and watching them and go, why not come out with a hammer?
And then we launched the smooth face, and people are like, I haven't ever used a smooth face. So we make this waffle, and came out with the
6 months or 8 months.
6 months. Yeah.
Good job, Adam.
Yeah.
There was a brand that was making screwdrivers, and linemen, we generally just typically use one type of screwdriver. It's a big flathead, but it's big because we like drive it into things and whatever.
Hurtman Rescue too, right?
But they never made the shank go all the way through this thing. Like they never built a branch of this product that had a steel shank that went all the way through. So you'd beat on this thing twice, and the little plastic inside the handle would break, and you just have this like rubber handle flopping around. It's useless, right? I love like the paying attention to things.
Yeah.
And actually.
Yeah. We saw, I know that this isn't by any means my favorite tool to sell, but I do think it's a great one to talk about innovation. Obviously we're big in the mechanical side of things, and we started looking at pipe wrenches, and one thing we saw was everyone putting the cheater bars on the end of them to get a little bit more leverage, and we just integrated that into our design. We made extended handles so that you can, it's kind of like looking at the user to see how they're manipulating their tools.
My shoulder,
Yeah. I think my two favorite, I got two, if that's okay. And they're going to be more categories than they are specific tools, but one from like a more mass scale to me is our outdoor power. Like when I start hearing buddies say like, I went and bought the Milwaukee blower, he's like, I've never used a blower so much in my life. Because it's like, I used to go out and didn't start. I'd have to fix the engine and take it in to get service. He's like, now I just go and pull the trigger. He's like, I freaking love that thing. So that, and I love seeing on the chainsaw when the thing about a gas powered chainsaw is it just sounds like macho, right? Like, like you see guys like rev them up and whatnot, and you pull the trigger on ours. It doesn't sound like that, but then when they go to cut something, it's got higher torque than a gas chainsaw, and they're like, dang, and they adopt it. And the other piece that to me that I think is fun right now to see our team sell and to see reactions from the user and to see where it's going to go is leveraging our battery technology, which we've just gotten into the small equipment space, which is our MX fuel line. And not necessarily due to the product, but to see people start to acknowledge where this battery powered technology can go and how it can be a direct replacement to gas and how we can get gas and oil off the trucks. I love seeing that reaction from a user to be like, we can take this a lot of different ways. right?
We had that down at the queue. Someone challenged us, and we kind of grinned ear to ear because
Challenge accepted. Let's go.
stuff's coming.
Yeah. And that was what, like, when we met with the team at the Q, we brought Steve Richman, our president, out there to meet with some of the Quanta leadership and the guys out at the Q, and like those were the conversations we were having. And our goal right now is to take gas and oil off the trucks, right? Like, how do we replace anything that a lineman would use on a truck? And that there's many reasons behind that. Obviously, there's the battery technology for us and the system play, but ultimately, more user-friendly, more more productive.
I grew up in the era of like battery tools sucked. They basically were just coming in.
Yeah.
They didn't exist. And like in particular, the gas drills for utility space.
The Tanaka 2-speed
horrible.
one. Oh, yeah, sir. Talked about.
No torque. They barely ever started, especially up in Canada. Like you'd have this thing. You're often traveling around the province, top to bottom in like one day. So you're like at sea level one day and you're in the mountains the next. Right. And then you're up on a freaking 60-foot pole and you're just like pulling. And then it wouldn't go. And then you stick it in the pole, it dies down.
Bog down. Yeah.
You might as well just take your wrench and like grind a hole through the pole.
Right.
And now you can just like take it to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. It's done. But again, like nobody has to struggle anymore. It's like, thanks for taking the struggle out.
It's all about taking the folks on the journey, right? Like this is what you used to use. That we talked about this last time. We do that with our team to make sure they understand the impact that our tools can have in a lineman's life. Let's say is we let them use the old stuff. You use the hydraulic tools. You use those heavy type. You start to realize why guys have messed up shoulders is what we're bringing to market. It's not only about, for us, like obviously new product innovation, but it's how do we, again, make a lineman's work life longer, like that longevity piece, right?
Make it safer, more efficient, and more productive.
Yeah.
That's what our kind of our goals are.
Yep.
I think it's like just like leaning out too.
Oh yeah.
The thing was like 3 feet long and you just drill a hole, your like back's breaking, leaning way back. It's horrible. Now you can just like line up.
That was our first tool that got us.
You could drill straight holes.
That's what I love getting. When our team gets on the pole, we work with Cellcat down in Newnan, Georgia.
Okay.
Those guys, they train our entire team. Every new Milwaukee utility person that comes in, they go down, and when you start to see them climbing a pole, and then you start to see them start to lean back to make a crimp. And it's it puts things into perspective, right? Because they're used to having a tool on the ground to say, hey, look, it crimps faster or something like the marketing stuff. But when you get it in the position, they understand.
Here's how you actually use it.
Application, in a true scenario.
Or then here's a MD6. Go squeeze it now, like
Do
with
an
a hand
H-tap.
tool. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and not just like, but usually it's like some weird
Right.
one hand
Right.
here, one
On the shoulder.
Yeah.
What is, I know you guys can't talk a lot about like innovation past like what you're working on, but do you have like a 30,000 foot view, something that you haven't said, like this is where we're going, or this is what we're working, this is what we're excited about?
Mike hit the gas utility piece. Obviously, we've given you the high level there. And I'd say the other one for us that's relevant for this industry is clean energy. Obviously, I know Quanta is heavily into it. With Blattner and some of the other business units, but there's some prime opportunity for us to come in and disrupt. It's a whole different space.
Sure.
Right. Margins are slim. Labor, same thing, same labor challenges that the utility industry has. But how can you increase productivity in a space that with slim margins and be a partner to the industry and improve the process? Like if any of our customers come to us that are doing solar work or doing offshore wind or working on turbines, like they're like, how can you improve the process? And that's a fun one for us because it can be multifaceted from a tooling perspective.
Sure.
So the clean energy is a big one. I'm excited about that one. We have a guy, Jeff Lohman, who's on my team. I mentioned him earlier. We did the same thing that we did with gas utility. We've immersed ourselves in that world. Like, what are the trade orgs? Who are the key users? Where's the industry going? one cool thing with that one, it's been more of a global effort for us. Denmark and Norway and some of those countries are way ahead of the U.S. when it comes to offshore wind. So we're working with that team to understand, how do we replicate success over here and be a part of the entire process, which for us isn't always the case, right? We're more North America driven, Canada, Latin America. So it's been fun to work with them to learn where they're at and how we can apply it and where we can go. So that's definitely a big one. I think in general, we're looking at how do we leverage our battery technology. I don't know if we've ever said this on here, but we did hold the patent for lithium ion technology within Power Tools in the past, and we are ahead of our competitors, right? Just from a life cycle standpoint and learning, and some of the engineers that we bring in and how we can continue to get better. But it's cool for us to be able to piggyback on that macro piece as well. Like as Tesla and Rivian and all these other guys get into batteries, it's going to continue to push the limits on battery technology. So we're going to be able to learn a lot there. So that's pretty high level, but
Sure.
And we launched our new Forge batteries, so there's some new technology. And the cool thing too is our leadership knows that you guys have an investment, right? And our battery is going to stay true to the current platform. So if you have an M18 battery that you bought in 2008, it's going to work with the tool you buy in 2023 and vice versa, right? So the technology will continue to change and improve, but it still will work with your products, right? So
the other piece that I think is going to be fun for us, we're already making significant headway, so it's by no means new. But what is going to be really, really fun and impactful for this world is PPE.
Oh, nice.
We just started we have the facility up in Mugwanago. We're trying to control our destiny. Same thing there with the PPE world is learn from the user. We have a lot of cool things coming. Mike and I are lock in step with our team over there to understand. When we launched PPE in general, I'd say it was very focused on the commercial job site. So one of the things we always get asked, hey, do you make that in FR and whatnot? It's like, no, we don't. But we have a lot of opportunity here to disrupt that space and win in that space.
And we've worked with your safety leadership team, Matt Confer and his crew, right? They've challenge us, give us direction, give us feedback, give us just like an insight of what they would like. So like I said, we're working with them very closely on it.
You're obviously familiar with the capacity model then. I talk about the capacity model quite a bit on here, and something I learned last night from our safety leadership as well is like they're starting to take that capacity model and apply it at the vendor level, at the clients that are, and the people that we're dealing with at the vendor level, like pre-project.
Yep.
Starting to get into engineering, like you guys know, but like for the people listening, it's super cool to know that like you're not just it's not just the foreman on the job now looking at what might hurt you, what kind of barriers could we use, but they're going to engineering or to packaging, like who's packaging this steel, and it would work better for us if you could lay it out like this, and starting to get involved that way is like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So go
ahead.
I was going to say two things, and you're probably going to say the same thing, but two ways we're trying to differentiate ourselves there is one cool thing that we've done now for I think 3 or 4 years as we've gotten deeper in the PPE space is we have a safety summit. Again, I don't want to give away the playbook here, but sure. we invite folks like Comfer and safety influencers, OSHA, like folks that are heavily involved in this world back to our office, and we do like brainstorm sessions, if you will, to see how we can continue to disrupt. The other thing we did that I think is pretty awesome, we have a guy, Justin Asbill, on our team who was an actual safety manager at one of our users. So he can come in and bring in the perspective of the user and be that connector for us throughout the industries of, safety guys like to talk to safety guys, right? Like, and he can give us that perspective, and he can be our advocate when he's out in the field to explain why we're making some of the decisions we're making. What
I like about you guys jumping into PPE is that you can if you put the same level of focus into your PPE as you do in your tools, you're already making the tools. So if you make the safety gear to go with the tools, there's like a lot of like learning there and application process, like designing this piece of PPE to work with this tool. That's neat to me, because then, you know, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's the same as our accessory business, right? Like that's what kind of helps us succeed there, is we need to design a bit that is rated for the torque that we're going to put in this tool, right? And that's something that not a lot of other, I guess, brands in the industry have the luxury of, is as we design product and things get more and more powerful with this battery technology, you can't have the same old bit. And we have an entire, they have their entire own building now, our accessories team, where they're looking at technologies and materials and how they can continue to keep pace as battery technology continues to push the limits. How can we? So you're 100% right, is that synergy, that one team mentality, right? Is if someone's working on, we don't work in silos, so we need to make sure every business unit knows what each person's doing so that they can pair together. So pretty cool.
Why is craft labor important for the country? Why is it important to focus on craft skilled labor?
I mean, that's what builds America. That's what keeps America moving, right? There's, you know, good paying jobs, good people, and it's important, right? That's how we build civilizations. That's how we keep it moving forward. That's what allows us to live in a way, right? I mean, infrastructure, homes, manufacturing, all that stuff, right? Kind of gets rolled up into one. You know, I'm an advocate now of, when I've talked to like neighbors and their kids and even my kids, of instead of just plowing that college narrative, it's look at the skilled trades, look at, you know, all that stuff, right? Like my kids, I don't know if college is where they want to go or what they want to do. They're young. But I do push with the older kids of look at that apprenticeship, right? Especially linemen, all the time I push it.
Yeah, I think especially in the utility world, it's everyone sees the aging infrastructure. I think there's that piece, right? There's like that macro piece of like, hey, we need to be able to continue to keep the lights on, and we need the right people to build and maintain those things. To Mike's point, I think the other piece is it doesn't really answer your question, but it's part of what we do as well, is continue to educate people about the paths that they can take. I talked about this last time we were together, is until I started to learn about this industry, I had no idea. And it's been fun for me to be a part of Veep with what Madison and David are doing with Quanta to get veterans into the program. We work at Milwaukee with helmets to hard hats, same thing. So outside the just utility industry, how do we get veterans into craft labor? So it's apprenticeship is obviously a big piece to what we do as well. Like we want to help the training centers and the AJATCs get talent in. Like what are some of the rewards programs we can partner with them on to keep people there? But to me, the importance is obviously it's the lifeblood of our country, right? Like a lot of our generations before us helped build it and get us to here, and now it's at a point where we need to reinvest and prepare it for the next generations.
Especially like with clean energy and renewables, that's like the next boom, right? To take us to the next level.
And you hear from those folks in that world, like that is a big challenge. Is getting people like, you know, one thing that's cool about line work to me, at least a lot of the folks I've come across, is like, hey, my grandfather was a lineman, you know, my great grandfather was a lineman, my son's going to be a lineman. Like it is generational. Yeah. In some of the other traits, not really like that. So anyway, that's a big piece for us, as to how do we continue to carry that flag for our partners in the industry to get more and more people into the apprenticeship.
That's why I like asking the questions, because I just like people talking about it more, right? No. And saying the same thing. Like we kind of giggle because we're in the industry, but like there isn't a common conversation in most households. It's like, hey, what are you going to do after high school? I'm going to go to college, university. It's like not even talked about. It's not even a thought
Which is crazy. Now being a part of it,
Oh, absolutely.
it's crazy that more people don't talk about
It was this morning, my neighbor group chat. We were sitting there talking about something, and someone said college. I said, well, you should have them, consider going into line work. So, I mean, I push that narrative, being a part of the industry, not in the industry, being part of the industry. I definitely push that narrative all the time for you guys.
One of the guys on our team, John Wood, who's our regional manager for the Northeast, his son wasn't necessarily interested in college. And I think it really wasn't until John joined our team to learn about the utility industry. And now, he was like, how do I get Coop into the trade? I'm like, hey, talk to Ionelli and figure out the best path for him. And now he's going down that path, which is, again, I think it's to your point, like I love what you're doing through this and other avenues and what Madison and David are doing. Like, how do we teach the rest of the country in the U.S. about this avenue that kids can have if that is not their thing? Like, there's a lot of kids that are good at working with their hands. They're mechanically inclined. Like, they love doing math and being challenged and climbing. And like, it's like this exhilarating thing that we just, unless you're part of it, you don't know about it. Yeah. We're trying, that's part of our goal too, is to help the industry.
When I was trekking to base camp, Mount Everest base camp, I got into these days, or I'd have to get into a rhythm. And the rhythm was just like, keep putting one foot in front of the other foot, in front of the other foot. And I just say to myself, okay, one step forward is a step forward. One step forward is a step forward. Like, you got to get into these little mantras. You just got to tell yourself. It's like, how do you get to the end? Just putting one foot in front of the other, just putting one foot in front of the other. And that's kind of like my approach to this podcast, as silly and social media, as silly as it sounds, is like, I'll get questions like, how many people are you affecting? How big did you grow? Or like, how many followers? Or, what's your numbers? What's your download? What's your views? And I'm like, was there one? Like, one is all I want. Like, that was my goal. One more. And like, I got to share with Duke, one story about a veteran that reached out. I'd never seen any interaction from the veteran prior to like when he DM'd me on Instagram. He'd been listening since the beginning. This was Noah Edmonds. Been listening since the beginning. He reached out a few months ago and said, hey, Ryan, I got a pretty impressive story. I think you might want to hear it. If you're interested, give me a shout. So I got on the phone with him, ended up on the podcast with him. But basically, like, line work saved his life. Yeah. The podcast saved his life, to a point. And that's worth thousands. That's worth millions. Yeah. That's worth all of in the world, right?
I heard that was a good story, man. Like, you doing that. Shows your impact of it.
It's just about getting the conversations out there. Yeah. And if we can reach one, reach two, whatever, that's what it's all about for me. Yeah.
Being a veteran, man, like, I loved hearing that because, probably, people talk about the whole veteran suicide piece, but I think part of the challenge for a veteran coming out, they probably played a sport in college and then they joined the military and they're a part of a small team, and then they transition to civilian life, and all that camaraderie that you're used to can go away pretty quickly. And that's part of the challenge to me, is that common interest, getting out of the military. And you guys have a great model that fits that need. And I love, again, obviously I was a part of it, but I love what you guys are doing with Veep and going down to Fort Benning and be a part of the Best Ranger. Like, there is an avenue there, and a lot of, and not to mention that, like, some of the stuff you guys do is pretty badass. Like, flying in a helicopter, climbing poles, like that adrenaline junkie in me from the military. Like, that is, man. What a crossover. Like, it's incredible. So yeah, it does.
It fits like a glove. It really does. It fits like the industry fits like a glove for veterans, for most veterans. Yeah. Want something new and exciting. All right, guys, I had you here for about an hour and a half now. Got a couple like questions that I've been asking pretty much everybody at the end, just like some random finish my sentence type of questions. So I'll ask them. You guys can each respond if you want.
All
right, Mike, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
My wife and I, we always talk about it. Born and raised in Houston, but with our travel, we love San Diego.
I love San
Diego. It's, beautiful over there. It's laid back over there, and it's just, maybe I'm not thinking big enough. But from where we have traveled, San Diego, if I've thrown a dart just to go somewhere to go, I mean, I always said I always want to go to Australia. Don't know if I want to live there because I haven't been there yet, but San Diego, absolutely.
Australia's amazing.
Yeah, I want to go. Yeah, so bad.
I'm going to give you two answers, so I'm going to cheat a little bit.
Sure.
But first is somewhere in the mountains. Like, to be honest, like that is my place of zen. Like that's where I can shut things down, like kind of just being a part of nature and solitude, quiet, like do more self-reflection, like hiking, like all that stuff is just really appealing to me. And it puts me in a different place than anywhere else. And it doesn't have to be, we had a place in the North Carolina mountains at one point, which is a beautiful place. And we've had a place in the Poconos up in PA, but if it doesn't matter where, it's just kind of that, for some reason inside me, like that just puts me in a good place. The other place is Hawaii. So I was a sales rep for us in Hawaii. My wife, I think, is still planning for us to retire in Maui. I don't know if I can afford that, but that is a happy place for us. I think there's nowhere else like it. It's America, but it's also the most isolated place in the world. It's the most beautiful place in the world to me. So.
Love it.
Yeah.
If you could have coffee with one historical figure, who'd that be? Why?
That's a good one.
You can feel free to pass too if you like.
Huh?
You can feel free to pass if you like.
I actually got asked this not that long ago, and I'm gonna spin it a little bit if that's okay. For me, it's my grandparents. Like, obviously not historical figures, but I think for me, like, again, growing up with them, obviously was pretty young when some of them passed, but for us, like, they are the greatest generation, and to really comprehend what they went through, like my grandfather was a tanker in Germany liberating Nazi war camps, right? Like when I'm 7, 8 years old, I don't really comprehend the gravity of that. So now that I've had more life experience, I'd love to sit down and not only him, right? Obviously that's it's hard to really put your head around, but my grandmother too. I think I might have talked about her last time, but like I think she was such a badass for being a woman in that time. She took an oath to never disclose what she did in the European theater, and she took it to her grave. Like, I'd love to be able to just sit down and just try to somehow talk her into telling me what that was. But to consider like what they went through, Great Depression, World War II, Vietnam, like you kind of name it with the U.S. history, like
Sure.
Love to just sit and drink a bourbon, not necessarily a coffee.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah.
I've kind of been saying that recently too. My grandparents weren't really storytellers, but I'd love to, like, knowing what I've learned in the last 4 years through this podcast. I've been telling people this actually recently, is I'd love to sit down with them with the microphones, and even if it was just for us, just for the family, sit down and like ask them questions like this, and like just hit 4 hours or 5 hours, lay out their experience with life, like dive into the different eras they lived through, like you just mentioned. And actually, like, even if it was just for the family, even if you just made it and you got some cheapo microphones from Walmart and you just like kind of sat down with them at the table like this and recorded their history, I think it's really cool, because if you look at our kids, our generation, like my kids, then their kids and their kids, like, I don't know what I'll know. Maybe I know my grandkids, maybe I don't, but they'll get to know me. Like, they can go back now and watch YouTube videos if they care,
right.
And, get a good understanding of like what I'm like, what my personality was like, what I did for a living, like all
was going on at that time
that I have no idea.
Right.
2 generations even.
Yeah.
I don't really know who they were.
Right. Yeah.
I have my childhood experience of who they were if I met them, but I really don't know them past that. I don't know what they did for a living. I don't know who they were.
Yeah.
I don't know. What kind of relationships they had, what they thought about leaders, like all these things that my kids will just get to know now, which I think is super cool. So I'm trying to encourage anybody just like sit down with their grandparents or their great grandparents if they're still around, even their folks,
take it in
and go like, well, what do you know about your grandparents? Like, how far back do you actually know? And just record that and put it in some sort of family vault, send it to all your aunts and uncles and cousins, and just
My grandma, she passed away last year, 99, just turned 99. And probably about 5 years before that, we asked her to kind of write her life story, like write a book. Just put all her thoughts on it. She started from the beginning, obviously, to where she ended up at with. But there was a lot of stories and struggles, how what their struggles were back then was nothing compared to what we had to go through, right? Of daily understanding if they're going to even have a meal on the table, right? But it really kind of showed, asking her to write that story was eye-opening, because you can read books, you can read history, and you're like, cool, but when you read it from family and blood and people that that had to go through that was there's some tearful moments in that book.
Yeah.
And just kind of understanding the journey, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that multiple times today, just like where the family came from. How did we get to where we're at today? And what's a lot of the sacrifices that were made to get my mom and dad to where they were to get me to where I am, type of thing. So
it's really easy today to hire a videographer that has a couple of cameras, can bring microphones, knows sound as well, can, just the wireless mics, can set it up, and you could just sit with your family in a living room, and it's just for the family, and capture all that. I don't think enough people will take advantage of that. Especially if you're talking about the whole family, like you could all pitch together and it'd be like, I don't know, $50 a person just to sit down for 4 hours, and actually record some history. Yeah.
So sorry not to spin your question, but
I like it.
Yeah. I just think that's more personal to me, right? Like I could say Jeff Bezos, I could say whatever, right? Like you could say I could say Abraham Lincoln, but I to me, to understand who I am, like I'd love to know.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, their story.
Yeah.
Cool. What's your guys' favorite part about your job?
People.
Yeah. Look at that. Yeah. It's, sometimes it doesn't feel like a job. You're just having fun. I don't mean that in the bad way, right? I mean,
sure.
I love what I do. Every morning I wake up and, you don't have that frustration to go to work. You have that, what's the next challenge, right? What's the team, people on the team we can rely on. Sarno and I, we talk hourly, it seems like. But it's the people, right? I wouldn't say we're all like-minded, but we're pretty close-minded in a way, and we all kind of have that culture to drive us to that one point.
And I'd say internal and external. Like, I think the most fun, like, obviously me and Mike do talk hourly, but like, we didn't know each other a year and a half ago, right? And like getting to know you and getting to know our customer and end users and what your journey's been and how we've been impactful, and just having a connection and like getting a text from you at Mount Everest base camp, like, that's pretty badass. Like, I don't know. That's like what keeps us going every day is both of those things. It's our customers, our end users, obviously our families, and then each other to keep this thing moving forward. So yeah, there you go.
Love it.
Yeah.
Shake and bake.
Well, I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, man.
For making the trip. Thanks for having this conversation. It's impactful. I love it.
Yeah, appreciate you having us on after the CEO of Quanta and an astronaut. So we're gonna hopefully we deliver.
Making big steps,
we delivered for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's always fun to connect with you. Great organization, great podcast. Proud of what you've done. This studio is amazing.
It is amazing.
Doing good because you're growing your hair out, getting more relaxed.
Heck yeah, love long hair.
But appreciate the partnership, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
Man. Let us know what we can do for you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. See you, everybody. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to Powerline Podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. If I could just ask one thing from you guys, is make sure you're hitting that subscribe button or that follow button. It does wonders for us, helps push us out there, get us to more people. I appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.